so cool about what we do is doing this complete job. So now, you guys, I'm not gonna really teach how to do the software. I'm just gonna do a quick run for a 40-year-old male at $750 a month. So here we go. Basic illustration, California, life of the Southwest, IUL, Flex Life. I got a client, male, 40. What's pretty cool is once you get to learn how to do this, it doesn't take very long. Let's just say Doug's a preferred non-tobacco. You know what? Let's not even do that. Let's just put the standard non-tobacco. We are going to do a minimum death benefit max cash value, option A. We are going to do a summary of his living benefits at age 70. And all this is asking me, at what age do you want me to show the living benefits? We're going to go here and put in the premium. So he's going to put a check-o-matic, a named payment of $750 a month. He's going to put that in until the age of 70. Now, a lot of people think retirement age is 65, but Doug, you're 40. I'm going to highly recommend you fund until you're 70. In doing so, you'll have twice as much money than if we do this just to the age of 65. So that's kind of a big deal. So do we want retirement income? And we hit yes. We're going to want retirement income. We're going to solve for max level income. We start the income at age 70. We do loans only. I'm going to go, I'll just do what I always do. I put 50% of the money in strategy 1. And in our example today, I'm using one of our 2 IUL carriers. And I'm going to put the other 50% in strategy 2. I've taught that for years. Optional reports, I always hit the cost of expenses. And I always like to show the sales presentations. And then I do a quick calc and I get to my numbers. Okay, now, you guys, I'm going to save this for, I'm going to do this. This typically makes it easier to see. Oh, well, forget it. Can't do the high-tech stuff. Okay, so let's kind of take a look at what we've got here. So I got Doug, 40-year-old male. He's a non-tobacco. For somebody 40 years old putting in $750 a month or $9,000 a year, and you guys, this is kind of normal. I don't want you to think of this, oh my gosh, this guy's putting so. I want you to think of this more like this is just a normal case. Now, you've got something called $8,100 of target premium in here. So if you're a VP and you're at 75% commission level, and I'm sure you know that's where you want to be. You're in training until you get to VP. So you're talking about a $6,200, $6,300 commission on this deal at the VP level. Prior to that, you're in training. But anyway, the minimum amount of insurance is $623, and we're going to minimize the insurance. And we go down here, move this out of the way. We go down here, take a look, and make sure we put it all in the computer right. And at the end of age 69, so we got 30 years of funding. So Doug, we're talking about putting $9,000 a year in your plan during your working years and pulling $114,000 a year out in your retirement years. So just stop right there and think to yourself, is that a sellable deal? $9,000 a year going in, $114,000 a year income tax free coming out, and along that ride of 30 years, you got death benefit and living benefits. So you guys, I'm going to go back over to a sheet I created.
That 114,000 is tax-free in California. That's about 190,000 taxable.
Probably close. In fact, thanks for bringing that up because I just created a new form for this. You know how you always hear I got an app for that, an app for this. I got a form for this now. Okay? So you guys, we run what we just ran, and so here's what I'm going to do to kind of summarize things. So I write in here Doug Jones. Doug Jones. And we're talking, Doug, about a $750 a month contribution, which is $9,000 a year. And for 30 years, 9 times 3, that's $270,000. Right? Everybody, I'm sure you follow me. So, Doug, what we're talking about here, and here's how I want you to think about this. I'm telling this to my client. I don't want you to think of this as a monthly expense. I want you to think of this as you're building an asset. It just happens to be a tax-free asset. And it just happens to be probably the only tax-free asset you're ever going to have. So now, let's take a look. You're going to spend $270,000 bucks. What are you going to get for it? Well, you know, every client's going to want to know that. What do I get? Well, here's what you get. These are your benefits. Got to get this thing up there. So bear with me. So here's your benefits. Your income tax-free benefit number one, Doug, is you got $600, I think it was $23,000 of death benefit. Number two, along the ride of life, you're going to have living benefits, and we have to run the full illustration. But at age 70, here's your critical, chronic, and terminal. We write those down, get it off the thing. Your annual income starting at age 70 is $113,000. The taxable equivalent, Doug, which is what you mentioned, is probably in the range, especially in California, of about $175,000 or $190,000. So I'm just going to be conservative and put $175,000. And if you live out to the age of 85, if you live for 15 years, so I like to use age 85 here. 15 years, you've taken $113,000 out. That's about $1.7 million you've taken out. So everybody, you put $270,000 in, you take $1.7 million out, and your death benefit at age 85 is still, we'll go down here to age 85, $264,000. $270,000 goes in, $1.7 million comes out income tax free, and based on our current projections, you got $264,000 left. Now, one of the things, everybody, that I'm going to show you in the illustration that I like to share with people is Doug could be thinking, oh, well, okay, but it all sounds good. What's it going to cost me? Okay? That's not an unreasonable, at all unreasonable. What's it going to cost me? Well, let's take a look. Rather than speculate, let me just get to the exacts. So here's your premium of $9,000, and every premium has a premium expense charge with every company there is. And in this case, it's $540 a year. Here's your cost of insurance, so you can take a look at it as time goes on. And yeah, it goes up a little, and then it goes down a little bit. Here's your other deductions for the first 10 years. And this is a significant chunk. I get it. But remember this. These policies are front-end loaded. And what that means is that they're super efficient at retirement. See, the IRA 401k is super inefficient at retirement. After the first 10 years, this cost goes down to $72. And you guys, if we go down here and we look at retirement age, the total cost is $2,100 on an asset worth $785,000, which is about 1/3 of 1%. So the IUL has the lowest costs at distribution, which is when you need them most. If you have $785 in the IRA, 8 times 3 is 24. You know, you got $24,000 or so in expenses versus $2,100 in expenses. So we have a 10-year front-end load. And Doug, these policies are designed to really take care of the people that keep them long range. In fact, I don't even recommend you get it unless you want to keep it long range. Now, so Doug, here's what we're going to do. What we're going to do now is we're going to write up your application. I'm going to collect 1 month's check for $750, and we're going to put it into the underwriting process, and we're going to see if you qualify. Everybody, I think it's really important that you kind of take charge, and Doug, here's what we're going to do. Now, I know I rushed over part of this, and I know that those of you that are on the call have all kinds of different levels of experience. So I'm going to get to the questions. So Doug, Tammy says, good morning. Doug, you still there?
Sorry, I was on mute.
Hello?
Hey, Tammy.
Oh,
I'm here.
okay, I want to make sure that my phone didn't go away or something. I lost it.
No, you're still good. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Okay. Don't have a heck of a lot of questions. Ron's book is not on the website. Bonnie, do me a favor, Bonnie, and call me about that. Doug, we need to get that on there, like we promised. No questions. So
Hey, Ron, I've got a couple of questions that I think people will have if they really, listen to this. The first one is, you said you collect a check. I know that there's an auto draft provision. Why do you collect a check, or is auto draft just as good, or how does that work?
You know, Doug, that's probably the reason I collect a check is I've been in the business so many years that I'm old-fashioned. And there's probably a better way to do it, an auto draft. So, and here's the other thing. Once you got a face amount over, I think the binding is $350,000, I have to check. So maybe we don't even want to collect a check and just put it into underwriting. So that's just kind of verbiage that I've been training on for 30 years. So I would look at the policy receipt and see how far up this thing is binded. And here's what I'm talking about. Let's say this thing's in underwriting and the client dies. Well, are they covered? Well, if there's no check, they're not covered at all. And if there is a check, and listen to me carefully, and if they are insurable, which maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but if they're insurable, there's a certain amount, and typically it's about $350,000 that they'll be covered on prior to being issued. That's called binding a policy. And the other important thing in this particular case is Doug does have $1 million coverage in force, and everybody, we're not getting rid of that policy until this new one's in his hands and funded. That's super, super, super important. Okay.
Ron, yeah, let me make a point here on that from an example. We have a friend that was in the process of getting a policy. It was actually sitting on his desk to be signed, but he didn't do a deposit check. He was doing auto draft, and so obviously it hadn't been drafted or gotten to the company yet. They'd actually issued it, but they just hadn't drafted it yet, and so it wasn't in force. He had a stroke. So had he put a check in with that application, he would have had some coverage. As it was, he didn't.
Not necessarily, because most of the policies have a 30-day. The policy's got to be enforced for 30 days for the living benefit to actually, that's really called an unfortunate situation there. But he would have been covered once that policy is enforced for 30 days.
Right.
With actually.
And if he ends up, he's in critical care. If he ends up dying in 60 days or something, then he would be covered in that 30-day deal, wouldn't he?
Yep.
Yeah. So, you never know what's going to happen in life. And, the worst thing in the world is to get close and not help somebody.
Right. Next question from Tammy is, how much insurance would the term policy be? Nancy, if I round this IUL off at about $600,000, we're about $400,000 short, so I'd probably recommend $400,000 term insurance. At 40 years old, be very inexpensive. And then we put a minimum of $250,000 on for Nancy. So that's Tammy's question there. What was the book name for the home-based business? Something like home-based business tax deductions. I'm sure, Bonnie, maybe you can type that in and I can get him the name of the book. But it's just, to me, it's an awesome addition to what we're doing.
And the important thing about that book, guys, is it is written for a layman. It's not written in accounting ease. There's a lot of books about home-based business deductions that you have to be an accountant to read, but this one's easy.
Yep. Well, this one is developed for the layperson. Here's a question. Ron, is there any other thing we can call these expenses in the first 10 years other than a front-end load? Maybe it would spook the people. Well, maybe it would, but it's not going to spook them. If I felt they were being spooked, that's not a bad point to bring up. But in the Common Sense Retirement book, in Chapter 3, I think it used to be page 28, it talks about one of the greatest things about an IUL are the expenses. Long range are so much lower. So I think the point I want to make is, in the first 10 years, you get rid of most of the expenses, and this thing becomes very, very, very efficient. And I've read a book that I recommended to many people called The Secret Asset. And The Secret Asset taught me that who benefits the most from a life insurance policy? And the answer is the people that keep them. These benefits are so incredible. How can these benefits be so incredible? The reason is X amount of people lapse their policies and don't get the benefits that they can afford to give them to those left over that don't lapse. So the people that keep them win. Okay. Next question. This is a good question here by, it looks like Ernest, great question. How about a comparison to other savings retirement options, such as compared to an IRA 401k? Absolutely, we can do that depending on the carrier. With Anico, we can do it right inside of their software. We train on it every week. And with LSW, we do have software that can do that. It's called the InsMark software, which is free. And we've trained on that many, many, many times. So, Ernest, that's a great question, and we do have the ability to do that. We're not going to cover that in today's training because it wasn't the subject for today. Okay, a couple more questions and we're going to be done. If we're setting them up on auto draft and not initially collecting the first month's premium, then how is it that we can still get paid for our commission? Well, the answer to that is you don't get paid until the policy does go issue paid. And that is another benefit of collecting the premium with the case. Okay?
Hey Ron, Doug, I've done auto drafts on all the cases I've done, and when they're issued, they draft and they pay in a couple of days.
Another one is, the book is at FEGtaxsavings.com. So if you want to take a look at this book or order this book, go to FEGtaxsavings.com. And the name of the book is Home Business Tax Savings Made Easy. Thank you, Stephen. Okay, so a lot about the book, and it's so cool to have that book available to everybody. All right. Well, anyway, everybody, I think that's probably it for today.